Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to do kind of a live reaction show. The draft has started, and I'm not going to do pick by pick because that's boring, but just kind of giving, I guess, live thoughts and whatnot. I was trying to figure out if I should do like a pre-show, because I never really got a chance to talk about day two. Spent so much time talking about day one and the result, I never got a chance to pre-talk about day two and the people that are available and whatnot. So far, we've got two Browns picks, Schlesinger and Quinshon Judkins. Saints are the Seahawks traded up for Emanwari. Jaden Higgins goes the second pick to the Texans. I talked about this. Well, it wouldn't be last night. Yeah, it would be last night. I get it all confused. I just recorded it, but a lot of Packer fans still want a wide receiver. Man, there's been a ton of trades. Dolphins just traded up for Savion Williams here. Trade after trade. I mean, all 4 out of the 5 picks have been a trade, aside from the first one with the Browns. But yeah, a lot of Packer fans still wanted that. Now, that was something I wanted to mention. Obviously, you guys know what the pick is, but there's just not a lot of wide receivers remaining. And so you look at, I don't know that it's still the biggest need, and it's certainly not the biggest still available. Everything is falling, from my opinion. I was never a huge Jaden Higgins guy, and I'm not really in on wide receiver at this point. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I'm not super in on it. So as of right now, Schlesinger, Higgins, Emanwari, Judkins, and Savion Williams is about as perfect of a start as you can get. On top of that, I don't know when Shedeur is going to go, but hopefully relatively soon, because that takes that off the board. Will Johnson and Mike Green, I'm just going to assume, are off the Packers board. And so I'm kind of waiting and hoping that they don't fall into the third. Same with Shedeur. So if those guys can all come off the board, that would be fantastic. We still have Travion Henderson, the running back. Luther Burden, the other wide receiver, should come off at some point. Again, I really like him. I don't really see a place for him at this point. I mean, that's not entirely true, but I mean, if we're going to get another guy, if that is going to happen, I would rather it be a genuine, like, X receiver type of a guy, Not saying Luther isn't that or can't be that, but it's still kind of a slot slash kind of a guy, which we have plenty of those now, By the way, I mentioned this last night also, but Cullen's guy right now is Benjamin Morrison. Had the same grade as Matthew Golden, so get that out there ahead of time just in case. But early on, yeah, the situation is really quite good. Even with when you include edge into that, Aziraku still there, Scorton, Landon Jackson, who is a guy that I was kind of looking at kind of a lot when it was sort of a, like, who do you think they're going to pick? And I'm looking at the trends and all this. It was like, Landon is not impossible. He's a little bit too far down to be a first-round pick, but a second-round pick certainly would make a ton of sense. Tuimalau is there, and then some guys that are a little bit further down the line, but Uman Yellen and Oladejo also there. TJ Sanders on the defensive line, who I like, along with Darius Alexander, is there. A lot of good options. Really a lot of good options here. Anybody? Patriots are going to take their sweet time, it seems. But even coming through this, a lot of teams need wide receiver. The Patriots need receiver. The Saints need wide receiver. The Jets need wide receiver. Dallas still needs wide receiver. The Raiders need wide. I mean, there's not that many to choose from. But, you look at, let's just, again, assume we don't need it. Then you got top need for New England is interior offensive line, defensive line, and corner for the Bears. So, if they could possibly see some corners go. Interior offensive line for the 49ers, interior offensive line for the Colts. I mean, corner is going to be rough because there's a lot of people that need it here, which could push more toward edge, but in general, we could end up getting very lucky because there's a lot. I mean, Denver with running back because they didn't take Omari and Hampton could end up getting a little bit lucky here. Oh, Travion to the Patriots. There goes that. All right, so we're getting quite a bit closer here. We're just a handful of picks away. Raiders are on the clock. Everything is falling really right into our lap. A little bit of a run on pass rushers here with Iziriku and Tuimalau going Dallas and the Colts. Arizona took Will Johnson, which I'm honestly completely fine with. I know some Packer fans are like, oh man, he might fall to us in the second. Look, if he falls into the second because there's serious concerns about his medicals and also like we think he's super slow, then just forget it. Just forget it. I mean, if he's that good, take him in the first. If he's not, take him off your board. So at this point, I'm kind of hoping like Mike Green goes. I don't want him to be available because I don't think the Packers are going to pick him. Maybe they take Mike Green, and I'm going to sound stupid, but I think that the issues are serious, and that's why they're falling. And so if they're falling, then, let somebody else take that headache. I did find it funny, the Bears situation. So the Bears wanted a running back in round 1. And I remember thinking, like, don't screw around. I mean, I've said it. Don't, either trade up for your guy, which he went so early you can't do it, or just take Omari and Hampton. I know it's too early. I know that's stupid, but just do it. That is your plan. You're going to build up this offensive line. You're going to get your running back. They didn't do it, and they said, we'll get a guy in the second. Okay, fair enough. You probably will get a guy in the second. Raiders trading back again. Texans on the clock. All right. Well, what happens? The third pick, the Patriots take Travion Henderson. I'm looking at it wrong here. The fourth pick, Quinshon Judkins goes, and then 2 picks later, Travion Henderson goes. The 2 running backs that are there, that are available as good second-round values, go within 3 picks, one of them right before the Bears pick. I know for a fact that ticked off a bunch of Bears fans as well as the Bears organization. Now, they took Luther Burden. I'm a Luther Burden fan, as you know, so I can't give him too much crap. However, I'm going to anyways. How freaking many times can we swing at wide receiver to fix this problem? Wide receiver, 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 wide receiver. You brought in DJ Moore to fix the problem, right? Then you brought in the 50-year-old last year. Then you draft a guy. Not to mention you spent a second-round pick on another guy. Several of these guys are already gone. How many swings? You draft a guy last year. You draft a guy this year. We've invested in like 6 wide receivers in the last, 3 years? I'm talking big capital. I'm not talking, 4th, 5th, 6th round. And so second round, you still don't have your running back, and you get a slot receiver. All right. And they said he could do more than slot, which I agree with. And listen, maybe he's going to be great. I get it. Fine. Whatever. Ursary going to the Texans. So we're just continuing to roll on here. We got Bengals, Seahawks, Broncos, Titans, Buccaneers left. And the corners are just thriving. Trey Amos is here. Savone Revel is here. Azareye'h Thomas is here. Benjamin Morrison is here. These guys are completely untouched. Now, Revel, I like Revel. I've mentioned my concerns. He's an older guy with injury issues. But you start talking Trey Amos or Benjamin Morrison, I like it. Scorton, I like. He's still there. Darius Alexander, pretty good. I like him. He's there. Azareye'h Thomas, I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look. Landon Jackson feels like the pick. I think I mentioned that before. That feels like a very Packers thing. I'll have to go back and reinvestigate that, but he's still there. Uman Mielen does not feel like a Packers pick just because he's kind of a smaller stand-up guy, but I like him. Trey Harris would make me freak out like you wouldn't believe. I know what I said about wide receiver, but you know how I feel about Trey Harris, so it just is what it is. I don't know how to feel about that, but I'm sure that's not going to happen. But anyways, I will pause here and we'll check back in around pick time, but yeah, just at this point, again, just kind of revisiting, the board is falling beautifully, much like yesterday. You're looking at it going, man, we have a lot of options, and similar to yesterday, it feels like potential trade back territory, but also as much as it's like we have several options, you also know if you trade back, you're going to lose a bunch of them, and I don't know if you want to. If you get something good enough, sure. Otherwise, let's just take the dude that's there. So, real excited. I would say expect the unexpected, but yesterday went pretty good. I mean, Jordan Birch is another. I just scrolled down to look at some of the names a little further down. Jalen Royals, obviously wide receiver again, but that's a big name that everyone's excited about. Omar Norman Lott. Didn't really talk about him. Maybe the best pass rushing defensive tackle in the entire class. Just throwing that out there. But yeah, a lot of really, really, really good options out there. All right, so the Green Bay Packers select Anthony Belton. They have him listed as an interior offensive line here on CBS Sports NC State. He's listed as a tackle on the television as well as on the Beast Guide. I'm sure when we hear from Gutekunst, he'll say, yeah, we think we can do both. That's what we like about him. He can do everything, and we'll see what happens I'm sure that's what they're going to say. So it's not going to be much clarity. Maybe he'll give us somewhat of an honest answer and say something along the lines of, we kind of like him here, but we like him, whatever. But generally speaking, pretty good chance we're not going to get a ton of clarity on that. I'd be a little surprised. I understand that Rasheed Walker is kind of the big question mark here. I think Morgan made a lot more sense at left tackle. This is if we get some of the negatives out of the way first, he is a 24-year-old, 6'6", 336-pound guy. Now, I don't mean to overly stereotype this, but that sounds like a right tackle to me or an interior offensive lineman. By the way, I mean, I understand. I haven't seen the reactions. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of people flipping out because you're only allowed to draft one of our three needs, and if you don't, you're terrible. But that's not how the draft goes. And also, look, I know we did some stuff with offensive line. We went out and got an offensive lineman, but offensive line depth was, Jack Bashwin. People are going to start crying here with these picks. By the way, one pick before the Packers, Benjamin Morrison goes, and Cullen is just in shambles. One pick after Trey Harris goes. So just the freaking worst. And then you get Besh goes and all kinds of stuff. So I'm sure none of these guys are going to survive to the third that are super interesting. Tons of corners were available, but, again, this is another thing I've always said. John Eric Sullivan is speaking. We'll probably do a lot of that. Well, I don't know if we're going to do it tomorrow. I don't know. We'll get to that when we get to it. Think about how much you like the guys that are available and understand Gutekunst and the Packers and John Eric Sullivan and all that. They like this guy better. And so, listen, it's not, you don't need that much of an imagination to think how a massive 336-pound guy with some movement ability can be a big help to you. John Eric Sullivan on Anthony Belton says, it's the old saying, big doesn't get small. I don't know what that means. John Eric Sullivan says he can play both tackle or guard positions on offensive line, a big draw for the team who likes flexibility up front. Big man, versatility across the line of scrimmage. So that's what I expected to happen. He says, we want to be able to overwhelm with size and physicality. This is what I talked about with my son. After we picked him, we went out and got a left guard that is a big, massive, mean dude, right? And we move Elton Jenkins into center, who is a better run blocker. We have a right tackle that's not a big dude, but he's a good run blocker. We went out and got a new offensive lineman that's going to be playing right guard. The assumption is he's going to be a better run blocker. I don't know if this is a replacement at left tackle or not, but the bottom line is the Packers have, we talk about the trenches, and, as Packer fans, we seem to think trenches just means pass rushers, but trenches can also mean offensive line, and taking this very seriously. And I don't know what that maybe we want Morgan at left tackle and this guy's our new right guard. That's not entirely impossible. You think back to last year, we were very thin and it was a disaster. We had a 6'6" offensive tackle, like undrafted free agent guy or something, playing at a guard spot in a critical part of the season. And so it's not only critically important in terms of how we want to play football, but it's critically important in terms of we are really losing a lot of top-end talent. We're losing a lot of depth in particular. And so there's there's going to be a concerted effort here. Again, we got one guy, now we got another guy. I'm sure there's going to be a whole lot of we'll see. I can't imagine a second rounder isn't going to be given a very serious opportunity to get on the field, but I don't know exactly what that means. It's going to be real tough for this guy to beat Rasheed Walker. And so, again, it makes me wonder if maybe we try to give Morgan a legit shot at left tackle again and see what this big, mauling, massive human being can do at right guard. I looked up what big doesn't get small means, and the robot has no idea, has never heard it before, but what makes sense, and I think it does make sense, is as far as like traits that translate or don't translate, big's not going to get small, right? I mean, this is not a thing that he's going to get to the pros and be like, oh, I guess he's not big anymore. Another quote here, he can dominate versus power, says Sullivan of Belton. You can't play through him. Sullivan notes his length and how his footwork has improved. We really like where he's going throughout his career. That was quoted via Paul Brettel. As far as like being shocked and all that stuff, which tends to happen, and maybe it's just because I'm in a good mood with this whole, the Packers' first pick and the draft being in Green Bay or whatever the case may be, I don't really know. But this one, it just doesn't bother me. Again, the concept of a 336-pound mauler, look, if he was like a 7th rounder or a 6th rounder, you probably shrug your shoulders and go, this guy's not going to play. If you take him in the 2nd round, the intention is this guy can play. Especially a 24-year-old, which works against him. They must really, really like this guy a lot and believe that he's ready to come in right now. So again, you got John Eric, you never know, but John Eric Sullivan, Brian Gutekunst, the whole crew coming in saying, we want him on our offensive line starting this year, throwing people out of the way. I mean, I'm good with that. Apparently his nickname's Escalade. I mean, come on. Goes on to say, being a good football player is very important to him. Adds that Belton is unselfish and will play wherever the Packers need him, guard or tackle. By the way, might as well jump straight into this. He has a 70 run blocking grade and an 87 pass blocking grade, having played almost all of his snaps at left tackle, 2,229. So again, I mean, do we think he's coming in to start at left tackle? That doesn't hurt the case that is the plan. And again, not that he necessarily grades out as a great run blocker, but you get the impression that is sort of the direction that they would like to go, is to get bigger and meaner up on that offensive line. So we shall see about all that. Get over to the Beast Draft Guy, because we didn't get a chance to talk about him at all, which I'm glad about. I wanted to make sure all the first-round picks are covered. I'm glad that we get to learn about a new guy today. But I tell you what, why don't we take a break, and then we'll come back and do this, and then we'll get a couple words in about the 3rd round before we get to that pick and go over that. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, Anthony Belton. Again, let me actually go back and do all of his things here. So he was the number 9 offensive tackle on this board. Again, obviously the Packers had a different take on that. 6'6", 336 pounds, just a massive human being, by the way. I mean, there are bigger guys, but not any of the anywhere near top guys. 336, 5'2", 40, 182, 10-yard split. He's got 10 1/4 inch hands, 34 5/8 inch arms, 84 1/8 inch wingspan, which is actually really interesting, because when you look at his arm length, he's got pretty long arms. But, for example, Charles Grant from William and Mary has longer arms. Some other guys have comparable arms. When you look at his wingspan, though, he's like Charles Grant of William and Mary has longer arms, but about 2 inches shorter wingspan, meaning this guy's shoulders are really wide. Of all the guys that are above him, of all the guys in the top 10, he absolutely, in fact, nobody even has 83-inch wingspan. He is at 84 1/8. So this dude is a monster. Again, being 24 is not great, but also at 24 years old, the Packers must really, really like this guy. 3-year starter at NC State, Belton lined up at left tackle, and former offensive coordinator Robert Anae's zone blocking scheme. After 2 years at Georgia Military College, where he was teammates with Yaya Diaby, He transferred to the Wolfpack and entrenched himself as a starting left tackle the past 3 seasons. Because of his size, you don't need to know his jersey number to spot him on film. I do like when you see guys like that. They just immediately stand out. He received the nickname Escalade inside the NC State program because of the way he can move at his best on inside zone runs. He can get in the way as a blocker. I'm reading a little bit more than some of the other guys because of all this, but he can get in the way as a blocker and control rushes if his hands are right, big if. Overall, Belton uses his size and length to keep the game on his terms, staying centered and forcing defenders to try to go through him. When he is unable to do that, his body control and footwork break down quickly, which needs to be further addressed by NFL coaching. With improved consistency, he has the tools to get on the field and contribute. He also, by the way, had a 29.5-inch vert. He got that up to 30 for his pro day. Couple of the strengths here. Blocks out the sun with massive size. Adequate lateral movement. Rushers meet hard resistance. That's kind of what the Packers are talking about. Like, guys just don't freaking move him. The whole bull rush thing is a pipe dream. Plays as powerfully as you would expect to push defenders where he wants. Washes defenders on down blocks. Impressive foot speed on inside zone. And blots out defenders on screens. Plays with edge and twitch. Stays flipped on the field. Actively searches for next victim. Started 32 games at left tackle in the ACC. Weaknesses: below average body control, weight transfer, heavy on outside foot, inconsistent punch and coil, hands get too wide, penalized 8 times each of the past 3 seasons, played 2024 season at 360 and needs to maintain his weight around 340. He was ejected for spitting on a Clemson player September 2024. Defensive line TJ Parker, quote, early in the game he was trying to fight somebody and was talking crazy. That's embarrassing for an offensive lineman. I don't know. I think that was TJ Parker that said that. Anthony Belton grew up in Florida with his mother. He played sports as a child, including football, starting as a wide receiver in Pee Wee, later moved to linebacker in middle school, then offensive line before high school. For high school, Belton enrolled at Florida State University School in Tallahassee, became a 4-year varsity letterman at tackle. He added almost 50 pounds between his freshman and junior season. Started at right tackle 2017, also played both ways as defensive tackle his final 2 seasons, helping Florida State University School to 8-4 record in 2018. No-star recruit out of high school, Belton was ranked by online recruiting services in 2019 class. Though he received interest from Division I programs, he was a late academic qualifier, didn't have any offers. Belton went the junior college route and signed with Georgia Military College, where he was teammates with defensive lineman Yaya Diaby. Played 2 seasons at Georgia Military and lined up at both left tackle and right tackle. Belton received his first scholarship offer from FCS schools such as Albany, Florida A&M, and Missouri State. His first FBS offers arrived from TCU in June 2020. He committed to the Horned Frogs. Belton added offers from Houston, South Carolina, West Virginia, and others during the 2020 season and decommitted from TCU in November of 2020. Narrowed his final choices to NC State, Syracuse, and UCF, ultimately signing with NC State. He was a 19th ranked recruit in head coach Dave Dorn's 21 class. Belton took advantage of the extra year of eligibility granted by the NCAA because of COVID. Graduated with a degree from NC State. Belton opted out of the NC State 2024 bowl game and accepted his invitation to the Senior Bowl. So 2019-2020, he was with Georgia Military College. Redshirted 2021 at NC State. 2022, he started the first 8 games. 2023, he was listed as, he played and started 13 games, was 3rd team All-ACC. 2024, played 12, started 11 games, missed the bowl game, which was an opt-out. So, final note on this, kind of already alluded to it. If you're thinking, but we needed, and you end that with position, just remember, at its core, best player available. I know, and this is the problem with mock drafts. What do people do with mock drafts? In the first round, you take the biggest need. In the second round, you take the second biggest need. In the third round, you take the third biggest need. In the fourth round, you take the fourth biggest need. That's not how you draft things. Now, again, when you look at this, you can certainly, because of the way that boards actually work in these things with the horizontal boards instead of the vertical boards, you usually will end up in a situation where you got several people and you can still take the biggest need that's there. But the two biggest problems here is, number one, if this was their best player, they should take him. Number two, we underestimate the fact that there are other needs outside of corner, wide receiver, edge, and defensive tackle. It's actually funny. I went through and I was looking at I was trying to do like a predictive mock draft based on what they've done before. And when you look at, let me just see if I can pull it up real quick here. So I don't want to go through the whole process of how I did this, but I ran several different mock drafts. And let me just read through some of the players here on one of these mock drafts. Let's do one that's probably less flattering, I guess. James Pierce, Jacob Parrish, Drew Kendall, Tonka Hemingway, Johnny Cornelius, Tyler Barron. I didn't finish that mock, but there you go. But when you look at the need number, it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's 2, 1, 6, 4, 5, 2, 8, and then 10. The positions would be edge, corner, interior offensive lineman, defensive tackle, edge, safety, and quarterback. And the reason, this isn't arbitrary. Well, why would you do it that way? Because I looked at what the Packers do. This is what the Packers do. The Packers don't just pick the biggest needs. That's not what anybody does. In fact, it was funny when we go through, we were looking at the picks coming up for the Packers, and it's like, oh man, they need corner or wide receiver. Like, this is not going to be, this is a team that's going to be tough for us. And they take a linebacker. It wasn't even listed as one of their needs. And it's not even a premium position. So it's not like it's just a Packers thing to do stupid things like, oh, best player. That's what everybody's doing. So again, the question really just comes down to, is he a good player? If you have problems, the problem should be, I don't like him as a player. I don't see where he fits. I don't like that he's 24. I didn't have a good value on him. What you shouldn't be saying is, we needed edge. We needed corner. We need defensive tackle. We could use another wide receiver. That's true. You're right. You're not wrong about that. But that's not the way that you do drafts. That's how you do mock drafts, maybe. That's not how you do drafts. And in reality, if you wanted to do mock drafts the best possible way you could, what you probably should do is really get to know these prospects and then actually rank them as a board and then do a best player available mock. And don't ever publish it on social media, because you will get eviscerated for actually doing a draft the correct way. Because what didn't you do? You didn't do what everybody tells you have to do, which is biggest need first, second biggest need second, third biggest need third. Don't get me wrong. I would have been over the moon if Benjamin Morrison fell to us and we took him. Or Trey Amos, who, again, several people thought he didn't meet the Packers' thresholds anyways. Green, no. I'm not a big fan of Green. He's not good enough for me to say, let's take a chance on his character stuff. First of all, the character stuff is way too serious to just be like, let's see what happens. That's one of those things I don't understand, how it's like, well, the risk is kind of mitigated by the second round. No, it's not. This is an on or off the board situation. It's kind of like when, what's that scumbag, Mixon, punched that woman in the jaw, I think broke her jaw. He's a first round prospect that went in the second round. Why? And the honest answer, which is a pretty despicable answer, but the honest answer is essentially risk. It's not about what you did. I don't believe it's about what you did. It's about the risk that you'll do it again. It's the risk that you're going to do something that puts you not on our team. So then you look at it and say, well, the value that you bring minus the risk that you might not play for us because you're going to get in legal trouble or something like that makes you a bad value in round one, but a good value in round two, which is a trash way to go about doing things. What you should say is, you're a piece of garbage and we're not going to put you on our team because you're that kind of a person, period. But that's not what a lot of teams do. A lot of teams will absolutely go out and get these guys. Some teams have made a habit of it. I mean, heck, the Kansas City Chiefs, who've won a lot of Super Bowls, have had a lot of people pass through that have had very problematic issues. I don't think the Packers woulda, coulda, shoulda done that. But we got plenty of rounds left. We'll see how this all shakes out. I haven't been super tracking as I've been doing the podcast here, but just taking a quick look. Let's see. I know Amos is gone. I think Savone Revel is still there. That's another one that's a big question mark. Like I said, I don't know. Now, if you want to do risk mitigation with that, where you say he's a potential first-round value, we'll take him in the third, that I can understand. It's not like you're a piece of crap because your knee sucks. But it's still a big question mark. Again, I don't exactly know which of these guys are available. Oh, Landon Jackson, if he's around, like I said, that makes a lot of sense in the second round. It's not that he was necessarily my favorite, but I mean, you want to talk about checking boxes as far as production and athleticism and the whole 9 yards. I can't imagine he makes it, but stuff like that becomes available. I'm seeing a lot of edge rushers. I'm seeing a bunch of wide receivers if you wanted to kind of double down at that point. Again, not my favorite thing, but getting some more defensive tackle. Still not a ton. Omar Norman-Lott, Shamar Turner, Josh Farmer. But the other good thing, and I'm going to have to expand my list because I have it out to 101. Some of these guys are going to start going that aren't on this list anymore. But a lot of stuff that I don't think we're going to take, which should give us some opportunities here. But look, I mean, this is offensive line might not be the number one priority. Oh, there's Shamar Turner right there, just went. May not be the number one priority, but they didn't take. I mean, even linebacker is an absolute option. If they took quarterback, or you could argue a second receiver, or running back, safety, these are positions you look at and go, "What are you doing?" Tight end, what are you doing? I mean, maybe they could play, but I don't know. Offensive line is still iffy. Linebacker, pretty well settled for a couple of the guys. But outside of that, if you get a real good one, you got to seriously consider taking them. So, again, I know we've talked entirely too much about edge, or, defensive line, corner, and that's pretty much it. That's all you're allowed to do at this point. And in the second round, to take an offensive lineman is unacceptable. Well, okay. For me, I just care about, is he good? That's it. If he's good, I'm happy. Shedeur Sanders not taken in the second round. It's funny because a lot of people, they were showing this, Chiefs took Omar Norman-Lott. There he goes, darn it. People were talking about when they retired his number, and his number's is number 2, and it's hanging up there, and they're like, who would have thought this would have been when he goes in the draft? And I'm sitting there thinking, are we sure? Second round? Are we positive about that? Because I don't know. By the way, can anybody out there know how to spell vindicated? Are you starting to... I know this isn't like, why is he talking about Shedeur Sanders? You understand how annoying it is that these people in the media were so stupid? And this is why they annoy me to no end. And I know it shouldn't annoy me, because they don't know what they're doing. They're not serious people. They're a complete joke. Kyle Brandt is not a serious football person. He's just not. I don't care if he played football. I don't care if he does this for a living. He's not a serious person. And by the way, Tom Pelissero, who wrote that article that I went over, sat right next to Kyle Brandt and basically trashed him to his face in the most polite possible way, and Kyle Brandt just had to take it. It was so beautiful, the absolute takedown. Obviously, we can't do that now because we're doing our thing, but yeah, the idea that, he's a supremely talented guy, and this is just people that can't handle confidence. It's not arrogance, it's confidence. You sure about that, Chief? I mean, I know you're not, because you literally just made that up. You didn't hear that from a single source. In fact, you're directly hearing from sources that that's not the case, that he's kind of a scumbag, and there's no reason for it, because he's actually not even a good football player. Oh, there goes Darius Alexander. How we feeling, folks? Huh? How we feeling? Just confidence? Is it just confidence? Shut up. John Eric Sullivan says Anthony Belton has the twitch to play on the edge at offensive tackle and the ability to match speed on the edge. He can play on the edge and play it very well, he says. All right, I'm going to step away for a minute. I want to get caught up on some of these picks, kind of reacclimate myself to see where we're at and how things are shaping up. I'll jump back in a little bit prior to the pick and kind of give my thoughts on things. Not that it's going to matter a ton, but just kind of so I can give you that insight into my thought process, and then we'll obviously cover the pick, assuming there is one, assuming they don't trade out or anything. But we will be right back. All right, let's get into this, folks. The Green Bay Packers drafted Savion Williams in the third. Let's not beat around the bush here. I want to jump into it. All right, let's get the boring stuff out of the way. First of all, it's not boring, but I've been watching him, and I am reminds me very much of Jaden Reed, where it's like, I wish I had been watching him so I could have had this opinion beforehand, because people are going to call me a liar. But holy crap, do I like Savion Williams. Anyways, let's talk about taking another wide receiver. Now, yes, best player available, all that. But I don't think you can look at the situation with taking 3 offensive players and 2 wide receivers and not say, intentional or not, probably to some degree intentional, this is a reflection of our wide receiver group. Not entirely negative, but more so of the... what did we say kind of coming into this season, or this offseason? Last year, we said, let's give them a year to see if they're going to progress. And then they didn't progress. Dontavian Wicks got worse. Romeo, at the very best, didn't get any better and had some kind of a situation that I don't think went over very well with the Packers. Christian Watson cannot stay on the field. Jaden Reed, I think, is a solid enough role player in the slot. I think they like Jaden Reed, but, you know, and again, this is not to say Watson is gone or Dobbs is gone or any of that necessarily, but I think it is at least to say the Packers, unlike with, let's say, our pass rush or our edge rush group, is not looking and saying either let's give it time or we believe in these guys or whatever. It is not we believe they are the future. It's, hey, if they happen to do something fantastic this year, which Christian unfortunately can't because he's not even going to be back until 2/3 of the season is over, or whatever the case may be, and maybe Dobbs can do something super cool, but I kind of think we know what he is, and again, potentially some emotional stuff going on there. And Reed is fine, but he's not our number one. He's not this premier guy, and Wicks is probably just not the guy. But again, you know, if he happens to do something great. Fact of the matter is the defense is doing some good stuff. They did look real good down the stretch, and they were just getting warmed up. The offense completely crumbled down the stretch. Jordan Love was constantly under duress and getting the crap beat out of him. He's, by the way, was injured last year, which they're very nervous about. Want to protect your quarterback. But then on top of that, we have to have weapons, right? If Jordan Love's the guy, Jordan Love's not the guy, he's going to step up, he's not going to step up, whatever. But it's not going to be for lack of trying. And what I had been saying the entire time, I don't think wide receiver's the biggest need. Anything's possible, blah, blah, blah. However, if they end up getting a sort of Trey Harris type, a more outside X, prototypical X type of receiver, a bigger, more physical type of a guy, maybe we have that conversation. Savion Williams is 6'4", 222 pounds. What role do you think he's going to play on this offense? Do you think he's going to be fighting for that X receiver spot? The Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks spot? And if so, what does that say about Matthew Golden? Again, I don't mean to oversimplify. I understand these are moving pieces. I understand that sometimes it's an X and a Y and probably letters I don't even know about and different phrases and all kinds of stuff. I'm just trying to speak in somewhat broad strokes to understand a broader concept here. If he has a place there, what does that say about Matthew Golden? It says that he's probably going to play in the role that everybody kind of thought he was, which is more of a Z receiver. Doesn't mean he can't play in an X role or be a number one guy. Doesn't mean he can't be moved to the slot or any of that stuff. But his best position, presumably, is as a Z receiver. That's Christian Watson's spot, the speed guy on the outside. Savion Williams is a big physical receiver. By the way, he's a lot more than that. I looked at his PFF. I mean, the physicality is there. The measurements and whatnot are there. But I went and looked at his grades over at TCU, 5 years at TCU. Another guy that's up in age, 23 years old. That's 2 picks in a row that are up in age. He's got 5 years at TCU. Didn't really look like he became a starter till year 3. Year 4 was his first year of starting. And it was his first year grading out well. 73.2 receiving, 72 overall. This past year got better, but not much. 79 overall. His receiving actually went down to a 70, and even worse than that, he had 3 games where he graded in the 80s, and then his next highest was a 65. Now, he didn't really have any bad games, but it's kind of crazy to see a guy where it's 60, 80, 60, 60, 60, 60, 50, 60, 80, 80, 60, 60. I'm rounding a little bit with some of the high 50s just to kind of not panic everybody, but it's basically like 60s and a couple 80s mixed in. I think, well, that sucks. But let me start with this. First of all, one of the first things I saw when I turned on the game, which one am I watching here? Against UCF. There was a route. It wasn't even a route. It was like a decoy thing. There was a run play, but it was just sort of a, I'm going to run, no, I'm going to stop. And it was the suddenness of that stop that was kind of it almost reminded me a little bit of Dontavian Wicks, in that it just kind of made me look and go, what was that? That seemed impressive. But it was just a stupid little thing. He's barely, okay, we'll move on. I have been consistently impressed with everything he's done. His ability to win off the line of scrimmage is just, it's too easy. The physicality through contact, obviously being 225 pounds or whatever, not really being able to be knocked off his routes, but the speed was impressive. So that was the first thing I looked at. I was like, this guy looks really fast to me. And I looked at it, and he ran, I think, a 4.48 or something like that. Let me double check here. I got to go back. Yeah, 4.48. I'm like, well, that's not that fast. By the way, some of the biggest hands of anybody on this. So on this page here, there's 25 receivers. So of the top 25, he has the largest hands of anybody. He's got big hands, long arms, wingspan, the whole 9 yard. Big dude. Big dude. He's also the heaviest of the top 25 at, what did I say, 222. But I couldn't get the fact that the speed looked real out of my head. And so I went over to look at the combine data here. And right away I noticed something. So obviously like 23 miles an hour is really fast. If we look at how many guys actually cracked that, Isaiah Bond was 24, otherwise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, like 12 guys or something hit 23. If you look at the 40 times again, go back to 40 here. If you look at guys that run around a 4.48 like he did, for example, Rock Taylor ran a 4.49. His fastest top speed was 22.8 miles per hour. If you look at Daquan Felton, who ran a 4.5, 22.7. Andrew Armstrong at 4.51 ran 22.42, 22.58. Trey Harris, 21.97, quite slow. Even guys that were a little faster than him, Jaden Higgins, who ran a 4.47, his top speed was 22.28, barely above 22 miles per hour. Savion Williams ran 23 miles per hour. He hit 23. So he ran the 25th fastest 40. He ran the 13th fastest top speed. He was at the end of the 40-yard dash running 22.95 miles per hour, which is the 13th fastest of all the wide receivers. That's ahead of, for example, Luther Burden. So he's got some real big-time build-up speed, but it is just evident from the start. It doesn't look like he's slow out of the gate. But either way, his movement is quick. His build-up speed is legit. His movement in general, his ability to change direction is incredibly impressive. And his hands, from what I've seen so far, the touchdown grab, the spinning backward touchdown grab, is very impressive. Now, he did have almost 12% drop rate, which is high. It's not good. And he did have it wasn't even I don't know if it was a drop or what exactly it was. If he either got punched out or something weird happened. It just kind of went popping up in the air. And so that kind of ties a little bit into what I think could potentially be the issue with him, or an issue, and that is, as impressive as he is, there's a serious lack of polish. Again, when you look at Matthew Golden, when you look at guys at bigger programs like Ibuka and whatnot, it's very polished. It's very precise. At TCU, it can be a little backyard football-y, it appears. He's kind of doing some goofy stuff off the line of scrimmage and whatnot and all this, and some of the routes are maybe not there, and there's certainly some miscommunication. I don't think the quarterback was very good, but sometimes you wonder if the receiver was supposed to be in that spot at that time. Possibly a concentration drop that I've seen. There was a block that was, I mean, he's big and he can block. It's not that he can't block, but there was a question of like, it seems like he was told to block and he just did his best. It doesn't seem like a guy that has been drilling very specific and precise techniques. And so I guess the concern is maybe he's just not very good at doing these things and he's not going to be able to be coached up on it. If he can, however, and if he just needs some coaching to kind of just tighten it up, it's not about be better. He's got tools for days, and he's shown the hands and the foot quickness and the speed and all these things to be a good receiver. But it's got to be tightened up a little bit. It's got to be cleaned up. It's got to be more precise. This guy is, I mean, I have to continue watching and whatnot, but holy cow, at the size that he is, right? I mean, if he was smaller, if he was, a first-round pick, and if he was Matthew Golden, he was 5'11", and it said he ran 5'29", I wouldn't be nearly as impressed. I mean, I would be, but it wouldn't be like, oh, I didn't expect that. But you're telling me he is 6'4", 222, can run 23 miles per hour, can run right by guys. I mean, they're getting pressed up, and he does that kind of thing where, and I've seen a few people do it where, for some people it's, and I got to keep watching if he does this as well, but it's about like, can I kind of like get them to, can I break their ankles on the line? He does this thing where it's like, I'm going to kind of jump to the side and just like get space. I'm just going to get away from you. But it does require like a decent amount of quickness and speed. I got to beat you to the spot, right? Real quick, boom, I got to be like next to you. And then I got to like stretch out and up because they're trying to get to you. They're trying to get their hands on you, and I got to create space. So I'm going to real quick boom out to the side and make space and just go vertical, but kind of like squeeze out to the side to get away from you. And as long as you've got enough speed to do that, and fast guys can do it, guys like Golden can do it and whatnot, Watson can do it, it works. And he just does it consistently. He doesn't get touched off the line. And with a guy like that, what I would have expected is he's not going to be able to beat the press. And of course, he's not going to be able to do it all the time. My thought is he's just going to be so strong, he'll be able to fight through it and it'll be fine. He doesn't get touched. He's just north and south instantly. He gives himself that cushion and that space and just presses that route up as much as he can while kind of bending it just enough to stay away from the guy. That's more of a speed thing than like a big size thing, or even like Devontae. Like I'm gonna basically break your ankles off the line and I can do whatever I want. But it's just not what I expected, and I am excited. And by the way, if you're kind of like, well, the grades suck and all that, and the production, 611 yards is not enough production. In the little bit that I watched, the amount of force feeding to Jack Besh, and for good reason, but the amount of force feeding to Jack Besh is wild. Remember, not getting the ball doesn't mean not open. There are times he's running a real nice route and he is open and it's like, ooh, that was beautiful. And then they throw it to Besh and it's a 10-yard gain. It was like, okay, fine, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But to call that, which is what statistics do, to call that a 0-yard gain and, basically therefore a failure, I don't know. He's on the opposite side of Jack Besh. By the way, this also needs to be added, and then we'll get into this. It's probably in here as well. He is a very unique piece, which, by the way, this is also not something you see at 6'4", 222, which is why I'm really pressing this idea. And listen, I should have earned enough credibility here by saying with our 4.29 guy, I don't see the speed. And it breaks my heart and it makes me sad, and I'm sure he can do it, and I just can't see. I don't understand it, whatever. I'm telling you the exact opposite here. This guy's 6'4", 222, and he looks like he runs a 4.4 flat. And he's got the shiftiness of a 5'11", 198-pound guy. It is not surprising why at 23 years old with very little production, and who knows what other issues the Packers would go in this direction, because he is a big, monstrous receiver, which we don't actually have very much of anymore. We're going Jaden Reed and Golden, and we're kind of getting small and speedy here, adding a little bulk back. But the other thing about him is he does stuff like Wildcat out of the backfield. So he is not just some big, stiff outside guy that gets jump balls. That is in no way does that encompass his style of play. By the way, Shedeur Sanders officially falls out of the third round. So, again, the bottom line, and I said this exact thing, if you're going to run your mouth like a superstar, like you're so cool, you don't have to listen to anybody, you got your dad pulling this bull crap about you're not going to the Browns, or I don't want my son going to the Browns. Can you imagine if you're a team and you have, let's say, a third-round grade on a guy or later, and they're pulling this Hollywood stuff, he's walking around in big chains and all this, and he walks into a meeting thinking that this is about going in the first round, and his dad is over here talking about all this stuff, and I don't want my son going to the Browns, treating him like he is a top 10 pick, and you've got a fourth round or third round grade on this guy. Do you understand how off-putting that would be? Do you know how freaking annoying that would be? And then again, apparently he's terrible in these interviews because he's super arrogant. Nobody wants to put up with this. They do it because they have to. Teams put up with this stuff with guys like Aaron Rodgers because they have to. They put up with whatever Tom Brady's got going on because they have to, or at least because they believe they have to. There are teams that put up with some wild bull crap with Russell Wilson and him being a diva and all this kind of stuff because they paid him $1 billion over in Denver, right? And then the new coach came in and was like, this guy can shove it, and then they shipped him off. But you cannot be a quarterback with a weak arm, zero mobility, tons of issues, and have a dad that is a liability, and you're an arrogant guy that walks around like he's the greatest thing that's ever happened to the NFL, and your dad retires your number, and just this media spectacle that is absolutely laughable. Getting your number retired? Are you kidding me? So yeah, I believe, 5 quarterbacks have been drafted at this point, and Shedeur will be a day 3 quarterback, presumably. I can't imagine he gets undrafted. But yeah, there are people coming out now going, yeah, I had a third round grade on him, so this is, maybe a little bit further, which again, teams that have a third round grade on you, but maybe are kind of annoyed by the arrogance and all the other stuff. Yeah, you're a third round caliber player that I'm not taking in the third round because all this stuff is freaking annoying. But if you're there in the 4th or 5th or whatever, we'll take. And he'll probably go early in the 4th because this feels almost like a statement thing. We're not touching you in the first 2 days. What about day 3? Oh, we're fighting for him on day 3. We'll see, but anyways, what a freaking joke spectacle that is. Can you take his number down, by the way? Retire his number. What a horrible thing. Oh man, Gutekunst is speaking to the media. Well, again, we'll do this another time here. We'll go through day 3 tomorrow, and then the next day we'll go back over some of this stuff. But man, am I excited. I'll read off a couple of these quotes as we go through. He did say, I didn't think I'd be up here talking about taking 2 receivers, but when he was up there, he was one of our staff favorites. So again, this is also a best player available thing. It wasn't like we came into this with the plan of we have to get 2 receivers. But again, I will reiterate, I think if the situation was different, if we had, let's say, drafted Dobbs and Watson last year, would we be in the same boat? I don't think so. They would have made different decisions. But we're not, and this is going to push things along maybe a little faster than was intended. All right, let's get into this, and if more quotes come, we'll dive into it. But this is from the Beast Draft Guide. Savion Williams, 3-year starter at TCU. Williams transitioned to a hybrid receiver role, frog package, as a super senior and offensive coordinator Kendall Briles' up-tempo speed attack. He split his 2024 snaps between wide receiver, exclusively to the left of the formation, and the backfield, 84 snaps, as either a running back or wildcat quarterback. So I only saw 2 of those, one wildcat and one in the backfield. with just 23 targets or more than 10 yards, resulting in 9 catches. He was basically an extension of the run game on screens and slants. I didn't see that either. That touchdown pass was probably 15, 20 yards, and it was a beautiful, beautiful ball. Actually, no, so there was 2 passes. One of them was a touchdown. That was a contested jump ball that he got. The other one, it must not have been a touchdown pass unless he had 2 touchdowns, but I don't think so. Oh, maybe. He did have 2 touchdowns in that game. Anyways, beautiful, like, off-target, spinning, going back the other way, catch, whatever. Big, physically imposing athlete, Williams has some freaky traits that will tease playmaking flashes. Very fitting that he grew up idolizing Calvin Johnson. He can play above the rim and has a knack for pulling in contested catches, but he needs to show better confidence in his hands and improve the detail of his routes. That's very similar to what I was saying. It's unpolished. Overall, TCU leaned into Williams' unique athletic profile in 2024, and the manufactured touches showcased his ability to create with the ball. However, the move came out of necessity because of Williams' inconsistencies as a traditional receiver. He projects as more of a joker weapon and needs a creative play caller who can utilize him in different ways. I just don't believe that. I really don't. They did say Cordero Patterson. I just can't imagine. I could be wrong. I can't imagine this is a, hey, Matt, I got you sort of a running back, sort of wide receiver guy that's just sort of a gadgety whatever in round 3. Really? I don't know about that. Not to say the extra stuff isn't cool and it's there and you can play with it, but specifically that's like, can we line him up outside and just let him be a wide receiver? No. You don't want to do that with this guy. In fact, that's literally what he just said. Gutekunst envisions Savion Williams as a receiver who can also do some other things and not so much a Ty Montgomery or a Cordero Patterson. So he dispels that right away, that this is not a gadget guy. This is a receiver who has some extra abilities, which, again, why the heck would you grab? Well, they did get Ty Montgomery, but I'm assuming they didn't expect him to just be that kind of a guy when they got him. Strengths: looks like Adonis with his large cut-up frame and long arms. Moves with short area quickness and body control of a much smaller athlete. Exactly what I said. Freaks List alum, because of his explosiveness and power, would be favored to win a 2025 NFL Draft Prospects Slam Dunk Contest. Physical to the football, especially on fades and consistently high points in traffic. Burst and play strength were on display as a Wildcat quarterback. Runs with urgency. Combined for 40 forced missed tackles on 111 offensive touches in his senior season. Completed all 3 pass attempts in 2024. NFL scouts say he had the strongest arm on TCU's roster. That's pretty hilarious. Wore the captain's C on his jersey. Receiving production improved each season at TCU. Negatives: not the most natural hands catcher, especially mid-stride. Again, no argument here. Lacks refinement as a route runner. 100% agree. Gives too many indicators to defensive backs about what he's doing. Again, that's going to need to be coached because in the pros, that's going to be picked up on much more so than in college. Initial acceleration pops, but he doesn't have an impressive pull-away gear. So, first of all, I'm glad that he said that because the implication, in fact, what people have been saying is that he has long speed, but the build-up takes some time, and the numbers somewhat bear that out. So I don't know. I mean, listen, if we're talking about pull-away gear like a guy that runs a 4.34 or something, sure, yeah, fine. I'm not saying he's a deep speed threat, but I do think he has deep speed to be able to win down the field, absolutely. But on top of that, I take that as a positive that he acknowledges that initial acceleration pop, which is what I've been noticing, where it's like, he seems pretty quick off the line, I'm not going to lie. Functional blocker, but should be better given his size, strength, and coordination. I agree with that, but I do think it's more of a coaching thing. Again, I haven't watched a ton, but just in the one time I saw him mess up a block, it really looked like technique was just, he didn't know what he was doing. Hasn't returned kickoffs since 2020. Don't really care. Lackluster career production. True. Partially probably because you're making him a quarterback and throwing to Jack Besh every 5 seconds, but yeah. Ooh, drone show. I gotta check that out. Is that seriously a Bud Light can? Frickin' Wisconsin, man, I swear. Green Bay Packers put on a drone show and it's of beer. All right, that checks out. Savion Williams grew up in East Texas. We got a lot of Texas boys. Near the Arkansas-Louisiana state line, rode horses and played sports as a child. I love that. Introduced to football by his grandfather. I dig that. Primarily a quarterback throughout Little League, Williams married his wife, Jordan, very cool, a Texas Tech graduate in December 23. Couple has a daughter, Legacy, very cool, who was born 6 weeks premature. Spent 17 weeks in the NICU because of a birth defect that required open heart surgery. So I did listen to just a little bit of his press conference. I wanted to get in here and do this and everything. He had mentioned that he really didn't open up a lot to his teams about his struggles. I don't know if there were additional struggles or if this is what he was referring to. But he said for some reason he felt led to open up to the Packers about it. And I think that was wise because we heard Brian Gutekunst talk about the fighting through adversity being a big positive. And they obviously, I mean, Jaden Reed and Tucker Kraft and, Jordan Love, these guys have all fought through adversity, and the Green Bay Packers seem to like that. So I think that was intelligent of him to do so. Williams attended Marshall High, where he's a three-sport standout. After putting himself on the radar as a sophomore wide receiver, he earned honorable mention All-East Texas as a junior and formed one of area's top receiving duos with Taj Williams, who went on to play at Memphis and USC before being selected in round 7 of the 2024 NFL Draft. Savion Williams caught 42 passes, 659 yards, 12 touchdowns as a junior, helped Marshall to a 10-win season. 2018 district championship as a senior. He moved to his childhood position at quarterback, led the program to another district title, playoff appearance. He finished his final season with a bunch of stats. Williams was also known for his high-flying dunks on the Marshall basketball team and lettered in track, setting a personal best 22.7 second in the 200-meter. He was a 3-star recruit, 75th ranked wide receiver in the 2020 recruiting class, number 59 recruit in Texas. He was recruited primarily as a wide receiver, although Houston did show interest in him as a quarterback. Williams wanted to play wide receiver in college. He received his first scholarship offer from Bowling Green during the spring of his sophomore year. As a junior, Williams received his first major offer from Arkansas and former head coach Chad Morris, an East Texas native. He added offers from Baylor, Kansas State, TCU, and others during his junior season before committing to Arkansas. However, he decommitted after Arkansas fired Morris in November of 2019. Williams received late offers from Ole Miss and Texas, but he was already leaning toward TCU and signed with the Horned Frogs. Williams was the 5th-ranked recruit in former head coach Gary Patterson's 2020 class, 2nd-ranked receiver in TCU's class behind Quentin Johnston. He took advantage of the extra year of eligibility granted by the NCAA because of COVID-19 pandemic, returned to Fort Worth for his 5th season in 2024. Williams graduated with a degree in criminal justice in December of 2024. He opted out of TCU's 2024 bowl game and accepted his invitation to the Senior Bowl, but later pulled out of the event. 2020 was his enrollment. Pandemic shortened that season. 2023 honorable mention All Big 12, led the team in receiving yards, missed one game due to illness. 2024 honorable mention All Big 12, 51 carries, 322 yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, 6-yard touchdown pass, missed bowl game due to injury. So, look, I have a feeling Packer fans are not over the moon excited about day 2. I'm not mad about it. It didn't go the way we've been talking about. It didn't go the way as far as corners. I would have loved it. I was in on Benjamin Morrison. He went one pick earlier, but, Savone Revel, obviously, even though I was kind of out on him by the time that the thing rolled around with his injury stuff and everything, but there were options. Edge rushers certainly were there. Other players that could have been pretty cool, positions that could have, would have, should have been pretty cool. But, again, first of all, some of this comes down to best player available. There were certainly scenarios where they would have gone corner or edge or whatever. I mean, possibly even in the first round, right? He mentioned how there were other players that were they were interested in. I'm guessing they weren't all wide receivers. This thing could shake out a million different ways. It could have been an all defensive. I'm sure there was a scenario where this is an all defensive class, depending on how the draft would have fallen. But at the end of the day, again, you look at how the season ended, and as Packer fans, what is it we want? We want and need this offense to go all in. We talked about it. I'm not saying everybody was on board with it. I'm not even saying I was necessarily on board with it. It was a thought experiment that I certainly contemplated. But the idea of let's just hammer offense, man. Let's get this offensive line rocking and rolling. Let's get some premier wide receiver talent for Jordan, and let's just frickin' get 50 points a game, and let's see what Half can do with these guys, especially with the growth, right? Again, Edger and Cooper for a full year. Quay, being given the opportunity to be sort of that number two, is probably still be the Mike and whatnot, but to be that number two guy with a more limited role, and let these pass rushers take a step, allow them to take a step like they were already doing last year. So, listen, you can have the skepticism. I have certain skepticisms, no question about it. And of course, some level of disappointment. There's always going to be disappointment, by the way, because you can only make a pick when you're given a pick. So for every pick you can make, you just pass on a bunch of other stuff. But on top of that, the age is concerning. The rawness of Savion Williams is concerning. The questions surrounding our new offensive lineman with his age and questions about where is he going to play and how all that shakes up, and the PFF situation with Savion Williams as far as just the lack of production ever at TCU. All of these are critiques, but at the same time, because you don't know, I think there's some level of, especially the day of the draft, allowing yourself to really sit back and dream. First of all, forget what it is you thought this had to be. This has to be, you take a wide receiver, then you take a corner, then you take an edge. Stop that. Sit back and think what this is. This is, let's really build up this offensive line. To not just protect Jordan, but to build this road-grading offensive line that our running back can run behind. Because let's be honest, he did a really good job, but he was fighting for his life, Josh Jacobs was. We also have another running back that we didn't even get a chance to see that might potentially be very talented. Let's get these guys involved. On top of that, let's get Jordan some frickin' real serious weapons. Maybe we have it. Maybe these guys aren't. Maybe. Fine, whatever. I'm just saying allow yourself to dream of what this vision really is, and allow it to be that until it's not. If you choose to be a skeptic, fine, go be a skeptic. I don't know how to help you with that. The fact of the matter is, none of us were over the moon excited about a single first-round pick. So I don't know what it is you think we're going to be able to do where there's just feeling over the moon excited about a second or third or fourth or fifth or sixth or seventh round pick or an undrafted free agent. It's not going to happen. There's nothing left out there for you. There never was anything out there for you in terms of this is a slam dunk pick, other than, again, to do the mock draft thing where it's like, okay, let's check the next biggest need. Is he a good football player? Like I said before, I don't care about the position if he's a great football player. Somebody's going to be a great football player. Let's just see what happens. But I got to go back. We'll do it tomorrow. I got to check out that offensive lineman. I got to do a lot more on Savion Williams. But I just in the first half of a game, I am floored, absolutely floored by some of the stuff he's able to do. Again, the rawness is a problem. And if he can't improve, if he can't really absorb the coaching, this might be a problem. But my goodness. I mean, take the movement of Dontavian Wicks and the size of whoever it is that's that big. I don't even know who to comp him to. And legitimate 23-mile-an-hour speed. It's not hard to get excited. I like Watson. I have respect for Dobbs and those guys, but if it ends up being Savion Williams over here and Matthew Golden over there and Jaden Reed in the slot with Josh Jacobs in the back behind, I could give a crap about the offensive alignment. You want to move Zach Tom to left tackle, put Anthony Belton over there at right tackle, Jordan Morgan at right guard, Elton Jenkins at center, and Banks at left guard. I don't care what it is. If that's what you want to do to build a dominant pass blocking and road grading offensive line and an all new offensive line, all new receiving group to really make this whatever vision you have for this, then do it. Oh, and Tucker Kraft. Don't forget Tucker Kraft. And Musgrave, not giving up yet until we draft one tomorrow. Then, we'll see. Oh, he's really tall and blazing fast. Okay. Well, that probably doesn't mean anything. But anyways, I look forward to hearing from you guys and getting your thoughts and whatnot. I will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.